Okay, we're going to start chapter 4, the Fertile Crescent. Have you ever stood at the top of a tall building in a large city? What did you see below you? You probably saw crowded streets and people rushing into stores and offices. Maybe you saw a busy highway filled with cars and trucks. All these things are part of modern civilization. What is civilization? The word comes from an old word that means someone who lives in a city. Yet civilization means more than just living in cities. In this chapter, you will learn how one of the world's first civilizations began. So, I'm going to highlight the word civilization. That is a vocabulary word, and comes from an old word that means someone who lives in a city. Now I want you to look at this picture. We're not going to answer this, I just want you to think about it. And in what ways are modern cities different from this picture of one of the first cities? So how are modern cities today different from a city like this, which was Mesopotamia? So, Mesopotamia, one of the first civilizations was in Mesopotamia. Today this region is part of a country called Iraq. Two rivers ran through Mesopotamia, the Tigris and the Euphrates. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was good for farming. The rivers provided water for crops. Land that is good for farming is called fertile. So here's another word that I'm highlighting, and fertile means that it's good for farming. For this reason, the land of Mesopotamia is called the Fertile Crescent. So now I want you to look at this map. So here we have the Tigris River and we have the Euphrates River. Okay, so we're going to write down 4 cities that were near the Tigris and Euphrates River in Mesopotamia. So I'm actually not going to write them down. We're going to answer this question later. So we've got Nineveh, Babylon, Lagash, and this tiny word here, So these were the 4 cities close to the Tigris River and the Euphrates River. What makes a civilization? We study the ancient civilization of Mesopotamia because it influenced later civilizations, including our own. But civilization did not happen overnight. Let's look at the 5 steps that people took to develop civilization over 5,000 years ago. First, people learned how to grow crops. They also discovered how to domesticate or tame and use animals. So here's another word I'm going to highlight, domesticate, and that means to tame and use animals. This was an important step. Before people knew how to farm, they had to hunt animals and find wild plants for food. These were important developments. Second, people began to build permanent homes. Before civilization, humans moved from place to place. They lived in caves or tents. So first they had to learn how to grow crops, and then second they began to build permanent homes. People moved from place to place because they had to follow the animals they hunted for food. But with crops and domesticated animals, people could live in one place and build houses. Once this happened, towns and then cities began to grow. Third, people began to develop technology. So there's the third thing, developing technology. You remember that technology is the use of tools to help people in their work. Early people learned to make weapons from metal instead of stone. They also invented such important tools as the wheel. Fourth, people made intellectual achievements. So there's the 4th thing, making intellectual achievements. Intellectual means having to do with the mind. These achievements included the invention of writing and the calendar. People could now write stories and keep records of their crops. Calendars help people keep track of time. Finally, people began to create laws and rules to help them live together. In a city, laws are needed to keep order among the different people who live there. So we will stop there for today and we will continue tomorrow.